Welcome to CUNY Laureates, the show about CUNY graduates who went on to win major awards in their respective fields.
On this episode, we profile another two Nobel Prize winning graduates from the City University of New York. First, Arthur Kornberg jumpstarts a new generation of scientists hunting for the causes of disease and their cures. Kenneth Arrow's love of mathematics results in groundbreaking economic theories and some tough lessons about how society makes choices. And producer Ari Goldberg looks back at CUNY's past and future laureates for the university's recent 175th anniversary. The year is 1942, and like thousands of young men in his generation, Arthur Kornberg has joined the Navy. Luckily, Arthur is far from the worst of the fighting, serving as a ship's doctor in the U.S. Coast Guard and stationed in the Caribbean. Okay, so it's not exactly sunbathing and margaritas, but the weather is warm, and Arthur fully expects to remain on Coast Guard duty for the duration of the war. His sun-kissed service is cut short, however, when he receives a message from Dr. Rolla Dyer, director of the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Dyer had just read a research paper that Kornberg penned in medical school, studying the prevalence of a latent form of jaundice. The U.S. government is eager for any new information about jaundice after a recent outbreak, and Arthur's study greatly impresses the NIH director. Dyer arranges for Kornberg to be reassigned to the NIH, and Arthur leaves behind what he later calls the most wonderful vacation in my life.
What Arthur doesn't yet realize is that his medical school paper and subsequent reassignment are a turning point in his career, one that has just put him on the path to helping decode the secrets of life itself. This is the story of a CUNY graduate who became a Nobel laureate and the discovery of DNA polymerase.
Arthur's trip back from the Caribbean wasn't the only long journey for a Kornberg. Arthur's parents, Joseph and Lena, also voyaged across the sea to escape the diminishing prospects for Jews in Austrian Galicia and settle in Brooklyn, New York, where Arthur was born in 1918. It was a humble existence for the family, with Joseph working in a Lower East Side sweatshop for almost 30 years before finally saving enough money to open a hardware store where Arthur worked at the age of 9. Neither of Arthur's parents had a formal education, and while other aspiring scientists his age collected insects or rocks, young Arthur collected discarded matchbook covers from the streets and subway stations of New York. But his parents were intent on getting their children the education they hadn't had, and Arthur proved to be an excellent student. After graduating early from high school, Arthur chose to enroll in the prestigious City College. It was a pedigree he paid for with a 3-hour round trip each day from Bath Beach. Luckily, for this working-class kid from Brooklyn, the tuition itself was free. Judging his prospects for a research position to be slim at the height of the Great Depression, Arthur chose to pursue medicine. With the money saved on tuition, Arthur graduated from City College in 1937 and was able to attend medical school at the University of Rochester. It was here in medical school where Arthur undertook the study that would win him his research position 5 years later. But it was simple curiosity rather than ambition that prompted his work. Arthur suffered from a chronic form of mild jaundice, a discoloration of the skin and eyes resulting from the body's failure to properly break down hemoglobin in the blood. While in medical school, Arthur was surprised to discover other students who shared his condition and decided to conduct a study to determine how prevalent it was among his classmates. Unbeknownst to Arthur at the time, this form of jaundice had first been reported 40 years earlier by the French physician Augustin Gilbert, who recognized the condition as hereditary. Arthur's study provided valuable information to those interested in the condition, and when his paper was published in 1942, Dr. Rolla Dyer eagerly invited its author to join the National Institutes of Health. In his autobiography published in 1989, Arthur Kornberg describes the history of science in the 20th century as a succession of what he calls hunters. These hunters were scientists seeking to extend life by looking for the causes of disease. The first of them were the microbe hunters, scientists who sought to explain every disease by finding its corresponding bacteria or parasite. But by the 1930s, scientists had realized that there were many illnesses not caused by microbial infections. Diseases like scurvy, beriberi, and pellagra were found to be the result of a lack of certain nutrients in the body, and so the microbe hunters were followed by the vitamin hunters. It was vitamin hunting that Arthur first undertook after joining the NIH in 1942. His job was to feed specialized diets to lab rats and determine why certain antibiotics were causing blood disorders. The theory was that a vitamin deficiency of some kind might be the culprit. But Arthur soon grew dissatisfied with his work in the nutrition lab. It was clear to Arthur that while vitamins could be linked to certain diseases, scientists knew next to nothing about what they actually did in the body. Consequently, Arthur turned his attention to the next generation of scientists, the enzyme hunters. Enzymes are the protein molecules at the root of virtually all chemical reactions in the body, and they seem to be the real reason for the importance of vitamins. In 1953, Arthur left the NIH to become head of the microbiology department in Washington University at St. Louis. There, he focused his attention on nucleotides, molecules that are the building blocks of the nucleic acids DNA and RNA. Scientists knew what nucleic acids were made of, but not how they were made. And by the following year, Arthur and his colleagues had identified the enzymes responsible for creating all 5 of the nucleotides that make up RNA and DNA. Now that he knew how the components were made, he could look for the enzyme that put them together. After hearing that his former mentor, Severo Ochoa, had made major strides towards the synthesis of RNA, Arthur zeroed in on the other nucleic acid, and now household name, DNA. In a series of experiments, Arthur combined extracts from E. coli bacteria, which he hoped would contain the mystery enzyme, with the nucleotide components that would form DNA. By studying their reactions and slowly removing their proteins that were not involved, he finally found it, DNA polymerase I. Arthur Kornberg's discovery of DNA polymerase opened the floodgates to an entire field of genetic science, including gene splicing and genetic engineering. For his own part, Arthur continued to study the enzymology of DNA for another 30 years. Among his accomplishments was the first replication of viable DNA in a lab. It was a feat the media inaccurately described as the creation of life in a test tube, casting Arthur as a kind of modern Dr. Frankenstein.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Like the microbe, vitamin, and enzyme hunters before them, Arthur had jump-started another generation of medical researchers, the gene hunters. These molecular biologists sought solutions to disease by looking for the specific genes connected to biological functions and dysfunction. And among their discoveries were the specific genetic mutations that cause Gilbert's disease, that hereditary form of jaundice which had prompted Arthur to conduct the medical school study, launching his career. In 1959, Arthur Kornberg was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, along with his earlier mentor and colleague, Dr. Severo Ochoa, for their discovery of the mechanisms in the biological synthesis of RNA and DNA.
With recent developments like genetic sequencing and gene editing, the gene hunters that arose after Arthur's discovery continue their work to this day. But a century of searching for the roots of disease begs the question, who are the next hunters? Will they be looking somewhere even more fundamental, beyond the molecular level? Or will their search take them to some field we haven't even conceived of? All we can say is that when it comes to the secrets of life, the hunt will surely continue.
The City University of New York is an indelible part of the fabric of New York City itself. And last year, CUNY celebrated a major anniversary. So we look back now, not just with a crash course on 175 years of CUNY history, but 175 years of New York history. The year is 1847. Iowa just became the 29th state. America is 14 years from the Civil War. Coffee cost 7 cents per pound. A carpenter earns $1.72 per day. Horse-drawn carts fill the streets. New York City's population is 500,000. And college is largely regarded as only the domain of high society. This is the backdrop to which the City University began, with just 143 students 175 years ago, with the founding of the Free Academy, the future City College, a rather radical experiment whether the children of the people, the children of the whole people, can be educated, and whether an institution of the highest grade can be successfully controlled by the popular will, not by the privileged few. After 175 years, you could look back at the significance of this experiment through a lens of the famous and influential who have studied at CUNY. Andrew Grove, the CEO who built Intel into the largest semiconductor company in the world. New York State Poet Laureate Audre Lorde, who dedicated her life to social activism and stands as an inaugural inductee to the National LGBTQ Wall of Honor.
May I never lose that terror that keeps me brave. May I owe nothing I cannot repay.
Or Bernie Sandler, the godmother of Title IX, the landmark 1972 law which flung open the doors for women in sports. There's Henry Kissinger, Bella Abzug, Jerry Seinfeld, Cardi B. You could look at it through that lens, and certainly, no story of CUNY is complete without them. But as an academic institution, first and foremost, perhaps it's best to look at 175 years through a lens of academic achievements. Scientists like Marie Maynard Daly, the first Black woman in America to earn a PhD in chemistry, whose work is the very reason we know to watch our cholesterol. Or Jonas Salk, who would be hailed as nothing short of a miracle worker when he developed a vaccine for polio in 1955.
Who owns the patent on this vaccine?
Well, the people, I would say. There is no patent. Could you patent the sun?
Over the years, CUNY can claim 151 Fulbright scholars, 26 MacArthur Genius Grant recipients, and 13 Nobel Prize winners. And these kinds of academic pursuits continue today. In 2014, CUNY's Advanced Science Research Center opened its doors as part of a multi-billion-dollar initiative to be a leading hub of scientific research, preparing the next generation of Salks and Dalys. You could look at it through that lens, and certainly, no story of CUNY is complete without them. But of course, many colleges can tout alumni. Many colleges can tout achievements. So what makes CUNY special? Well, across 25 colleges and 250,000 students enrolled annually, CUNY is the largest urban university in the nation. And that may be a fitting lens to look back on CUNY's history through. Those 250,000 students it serves, the demographics reflecting the makeup of the city, a people's history. This is New York, after all. It is America's melting pot of social mobility. In fact, a 2017 study showed that CUNY propels almost 6 times as many low-income students into the middle class and beyond as all 8 Ivy League campuses, plus Duke, MIT, Stanford, and Chicago combined. New York has always been the traditional hub of American immigration, of course. In the mid-1800s, when the Free Academy was founded, it was the German and the Irish. At the turn of the century, it was Italians and Eastern Europeans, Jews. And at the time, while most university doors were closed to this part of society, City College did allow them. And while it still had a ways to go in allowing non-whites and women to attend, its female counterpart, Normal College, the future Hunter College, was already admitting its first 8 Black students by 1873. In the first half of the 20th century, a lot of the migration was internal, with the Great Migration of Black Americans to northern cities. And since 1965, immigration has been prominent from Latin America and Asia. And if you look at CUNY's enrollment today, the numbers echo these population movements. As of 2021, CUNY's student body stands at about 25% Black, 29% Hispanic, 22% Asian, and 24% white. More than a third are foreign-born, counting 200 countries of origin. Point being, historically speaking, no other city has educated so much of its own population. And that is a unique dynamic between a city, its citizens, and its education system. In many ways, 175 years of CUNY history is 175 years of New York and America's history, from every era, all the way back since its beginning. The Civil War. Before his presidency, City College's second president, Alex S. Webb, was a war hero, earning the Congressional Medal of Honor for his command at Gettysburg. World War I. City College offers one of the largest student training programs in the country. The Roaring '20s sees a heightened focus on science, with Albert Einstein's first ever American visit beginning at City College, where he lectures on the theory that has just made him an international celebrity, his theory of general relativity. Also, a focus on industry, with the birth of a dedicated business school, the future Baruch College. The Great Depression. City College cements its reputation at the time of intellectual left-wing activism, protest against militarism and socioeconomic injustice. Indeed, it was called the Harvard of the proletariat. World War II. City College launches America's first documentary film school to counteract Nazi propaganda. The future Lehman College hosts the first meetings of the United Nations in America. It also offers trailblazing naval training to women.
3,500 waves in a formal review to mark their anniversary. In 2 years' time, the waves have made a brilliant record. Soon, the first contingents may go overseas.
In the post-war era, new colleges opened to meet increasing demands for education. In 1961, the City University of New York is officially born. 1960s New York sees civil unrest, like much of the country. Queens College student Andrew Goodman is a victim of the infamous Freedom Summer murders in 1964, while registering Black voters in segregated Mississippi. The next year, Martin Luther King Jr. speaks at the campus.
He, along with others, paid the supreme price for this struggle, and I'm sure that we will see in many ways that his death was not in vain.
And after hard-fought student protests, in 1970, CUNY opens its doors to dramatically greater minority enrollment, better reflecting the demographics of the city. When New York faces bankruptcy in the mid-70s, CUNY faces it too, in a sign of the times requiring tuition for the first time. And when New York faces tragedy on September 11, 2001, CUNY faces that too, as the Borough of Manhattan Community College loses a building and transforms another into a Port Authority command center during the crisis. Over 175 years, New York has been exalted, disparaged, half torn down, and built back up. And CUNY has been there for every boom and for every bust. From 143 students to 250,000. A historically unique New York institution and reflection of the city itself as it begins the next 175 years, with the words of its founder as relevant now as they were in 1847. For CUNY Laureates, I'm Ari Goldberg.
Since the dawn of civilization, human beings have been faced with tough choices. Over time, we got pretty good at choosing what's right for us as individuals. But what happens when we try to make choices that concern all of us? Are we just as good at choosing the right president as we are at choosing the right slice of pizza?
This is a story of a CUNY graduate who became a Nobel laureate and the development of social choice theory.
Born in 1921, Kenneth Arrow was only 10 when the Great Depression came knocking on the door of his family home. For Kenneth's father, Harry, this was not the first taste of poverty. A first-generation immigrant, Harry Arrow fought his way up the social ladder, and after graduating from Townsend Harris High School and earning a degree from NYU Business School, he firmly established himself in the banking industry. Now, after living in considerable affluence for over a decade, the Arrows lost most of their accumulated wealth and were forced to move out of the city. For Kenneth, this only meant one thing: more time to read. Of course, among the things we had left were the books, he later said. My parents were people of taste. What they did buy, they bought well. The furniture was good quality. The books were good quality. Like his father, Kenneth attended Townsend Harris High School and after graduating, enrolled in the neighboring City College of New York. The only tuition-free institution of higher education in New York, the poor man's Harvard, as it was fondly known at the time, was a safe haven for the children of the Depression era. Despite the circumstances, the student body became one of the most successful and most productive generations in the history of education. Studying along with future Nobel laureates such as Julian Schwinger and Herbert Hauptman, and under the mentorship of Emil Post and Alfred Tarski, Kenneth developed a strong passion for formal logic and mathematics. After graduating from the City College in 1940, Kenneth decided to pursue a master's degree in mathematics at Columbia University, a choice of studies his father did not expect. Though my father would have preferred if I had become a businessman, being a scholar was high in his value system, so there was certainly no opposition. Opposition, however, came in a different form. Faced with the outbreak of World War II, Kenneth made another fateful choice and decided to enlist. From 1942 to 1946, he served in the Air Corps as a weather officer, rising to the rank of captain. Luckily, his post was exclusively in the research field, and soon enough, Kenneth found a way to apply his talents. In his first published paper, Arrow used his knowledge of mathematics to calculate wind trajectories and determine the fastest paths for U.S. fighter planes to reach their targets in Europe. Originally used in combat planning, this study soon became widely known for its practical implications and is still being used for calculating the quickest routes in commercial aviation. After the war, Kenneth once again chose mathematics. But facing financial struggles, he accepted the offer for a fellowship in economics instead. I was essentially bought into economics, he later said. More than just the study of commerce and finance, economics can also look more broadly at the behaviors and choices of individuals or groups within a shared system of resources. During the next couple of years spent at Columbia, Arrow started developing a keen interest in this side of economics. Working on his PhD dissertation, he decided to tackle the problem of collective decision-making, specifically in rank voting electoral systems. It was long assumed that in an ideal democratic society, the decisions of the collective would mirror the preferences of individuals. Following this assumption, Arrow tried to create a mathematical formula that would allow decision-making mechanisms to seamlessly convert individual preferences into collective ones. With this goal in mind, he created a set of formal rules that would guarantee the fairness of this process.
So how can we run a class democratically? Everyone's for himself.
In short, Arrow assumed that if the majority of individuals preferred one choice over the other, then the group's decision should reflect that choice. He also assumed that no individual should have such power to always determine the preference of the group. A hypothetical person Arrow named the dictator. Well, you guessed it. After applying these fairness criteria into different types of ranked voting systems, Kenneth realized that none of the ranked voting systems could translate the vote of the people into the will of the people without breaking one of them. This unexpected result came to be known as Arrow's impossibility theorem. And the trouble was, its theoretical implications seemed to go far beyond the question of ranked voting systems. The impossibility of translating individual preferences into collective ones meant that many decision-making mechanisms in democratic societies had an inner flaw. Even worse, on a purely theoretical level, most of them couldn't exclude the existence of the dictator, an individual, or group of them whose preferences dictated the choices of everyone else. Luckily, the practical consequences of the theory remained debatable, or as Arrow would later put it, most systems are not going to work badly all the time. All I proved is that all can work badly at times. Despite his modesty, Kenneth's theorem proved impossibly fertile. It opened a completely new field of social research called the social choice theory. Its implications led to numerous debates in the scientific community and heralded major improvements across disciplines. From electoral systems to welfare economics, from public policies to corporate bargaining, it seemed that there was no area of research where Arrow's theorem couldn't be applied. His next major contribution came in the late 1950s. Building on the long-standing belief in the self-regulating nature of market economies, Arrow set out to find mathematical equations that would explain the complex relationship between supply and demand. To everyone's surprise, his effort ended up in a mathematical proof of general equilibrium theory, a theory that the interplay between supply and demand in competing markets results in overall economic equilibrium and, in the long run, benefits societies. And just like that, in one stroke, Arrow caught the invisible hand of the market and turned it into a mathematical formula. Arrow spent the rest of his career teaching at Stanford and Harvard. Known for his many interests, he continued to translate common sense concepts into elegant mathematical formulas. His contributions to risk analysis, financial investments, and corporate finances made him part of the investment management pantheon. Yet, his contribution to social choice theory, along with his long-lasting interest in healthcare policy and welfare theory, showed the side of his character that tried to find equilibrium far beyond the market economy. A paradoxical combination that started with his bachelor's degree in social science and mathematics from the City College of New York, and, in his own words, remained prognostic of his interests until the end of his life. In 1972, Kenneth Arrow received the Nobel Prize in Economics for his pioneering contributions to general economic equilibrium theory and welfare theory.
So, the next time you're faced with tough choices, try to remember, having so many of them may not necessarily be a bad thing.